Your vulnerability slaps you around, and some call that a strength. Today, we integrate the architecture that puts you back in control. In the last 7 episodes, we exposed vulnerability, its distortions, its costs, its consequences. We examined its root, fragile sense of self-worth. We dismantled the myth that vulnerability is strength. We built discipline, internal, operational, positional. We replaced distortion with calibration, reaction with structure. Now we assemble the 8 strategies into one operational framework for high-stakes environments. Unmanaged vulnerability is a liability. Managed strategically reduces risks and can even create leverage. Here's the system. In 8 strategies, we built components: acceptance, rational discipline, reframing, exposure, asserting, strategic disclosure. Today we assemble them into a control architecture, one that stabilizes you internally and positions you externally. This slide pulls everything together. At the base is detection. You recognize when you're vulnerable. Most people don't notice it in the moment. If you don't see it, you can't manage it. Second is stabilization, acceptance of yourself and others. Without that, you either defend, attack, or collapse. With acceptance, you stay grounded. Third, regulation. It starts with strengthening rational attitudes. And just to remind you what that means, it's moving from must to prefer, from this is awful to this is bad but not catastrophic, from I can't stand it to this is frustrating but I can handle it. That shift changes your emotions from unhealthy to healthy. That's emotional governance. Then you expose yourself to situations where you feel vulnerable. Make it deliberate and challenging, but not reckless and overwhelming. You reinterpret events. You reframe them to your advantage and assert when needed or when it's to your advantage. So you stabilize that regulation layer first and only then move to the top, to strategic disclosure. If, how, when, and with whom to share something personal, something that could be used against you. That is power-aware communication. That's the difference between vulnerability as liability and vulnerability managed strategically for leverage. All of this architecture sits on one psychological engine: core fragile view of your worth as a human being. Belief, I'm not worthy, I am not enough. This belief distorts perception. Distorted perception fuels unhealthy emotions. Unhealthy emotions drive self-sabotage. Self-sabotage reduces capacity. That chain is vulnerability. We just saw the root cause. I am not enough. Now look at how that belief distorts power at work. On the left are real experts. Well-dressed, polished, competent, high value. But look at the mirror. They see themselves as incompetent. That's impostorism. They underclaim power. They shrink their influence. They assume others are right and they're wrong. Internally, they tell themselves, it's only a matter of time before they discover I'm a fraud. Now, what's the solution? It's not, I accept myself as a fraud. That's absurd. The solution is to believe this: even if I lack certain skills, that does not define my worth as a human being. It simply means I'm imperfect and fallible. That's all. That shift removes self-depreciation. It restores rational thinking. It improves perception. Now look at the right. The opposite distortion. Poorly dressed, insecure, limited competence, yet inflated reflection. In the mirror, they see themselves as experts. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Here, confidence is not built on competence. It's built on denial. They overclaim power. They project certainty without foundation. The reflection is a facade. Why? Because admitting incompetence would activate the same core fear. I'm not enough. So instead of shrinking, they inflate. They dominate space they haven't earned. Impostorism avoids power. Dunning-Kruger misuses power. And here's the problem. Who is more likely to get promoted? Who is more likely to become your boss? Sometimes, often, the one who overclaims power. Especially in environments where political awareness outweighs technical skill. And this is why perception calibration and self-acceptance are not psychological luxuries. They are survival skills at work. Look at this slide again. Look how the core belief and resulting compensating attitude take away power from those who deserve it on the left and give it to those who don't on the right. What is acceptance? It's seeing yourself as you are, without self-elevation, without self-depreciation. Your skills may be strong or weak. You may succeed or fail. That matters in your annual performance evaluation. It affects your bonus, but not your worth as a human being. Your self-worth is not a stock price that rises or falls with performance. That's self-acceptance and acceptance of others. Is the same principle applied forward. Seeing others for what they are without putting them on a pedestal, without looking down on them, neither idolizing nor demonizing, just accuracy. Just like walking requires two legs, mental clarity requires both, full acceptance of yourself, full acceptance of others. When you remove the worth evaluation game, distortion collapses. You stop overestimating yourself or others. You stop underestimating yourself or others. You refuse to rank human value, yours or theirs. And that is the foundation for governing vulnerability. Because once distortion ends, regulation becomes possible. Making your attitudes more rational is about becoming more balanced and calm during life's inevitable hardships, so you can cope better at work, at home, and in between. This is about moving from disturbance to clarity. Look at this. Demand, awfulizing, intolerable, condemn. These are rigid and extreme attitudes. Demanding is using words like must and should. I must perform incredibly. You must treat me with respect. Awful is catastrophizing. It's awful when I don't perform perfectly. It's horrible when others don't treat me well. Intolerable is believing you can't handle frustration. I just can't stand it. Condemning is labeling yourself or others. I'm useless when I don't perform greatly. Others are idiots when they don't treat me well. These beliefs are your disturbance-producing engine. This leads to self-sabotage and all kinds of problems. Now look at the right side. Preference, bad but not tragic, tolerable and worth tolerating, accept. This is replacing inner volatility with calibration and precision. Instead of you must respect me, you move to I strongly prefer respect, but I don't have to have it. Instead of this is awful, you move to this is bad, but not catastrophic. Instead of I can't stand it, you move to I don't like it, but I can handle it and I may even grow from it. Instead of condemning yourself or others, you accept human imperfection without excusing harmful behaviors, neither your own or others'. That shift changes the outcome. You move from disturbed to balance, from self-sabotage to strategy. When you remove rigid demands and extreme attitudes, you gain flexibility and resilience, and that puts you in the mental state and position to act strategically instead of reactively. This is not optimism. This is not positive thinking. This is disciplined, rational, realistic thinking, and it is the foundation for everything that follows. Upgrading attitudes improves stability, but it's not enough because the mind still creates dangers that exist only in your head. So what do? You reinterpret events. You reframe meaning when it serves your goals. Then you assert. You voice your position because goals require expression. But there is another layer. Your inner critic doesn't just talk. It shows images of chaos, embarrassment, failure. That's your video inner critic. The solution is not visualizing triumph or trophy. It's rehearsing execution of tasks. You simulate starting, doing, finishing. That cancels future failure rehearsals. It interrupts catastrophic default simulation mode. So what you should do? Reinterpret, reframe, assert, rehearse execution, then execute. That's agency. Just make sure the pressure is calibrated. Stretch yourself, don't shock. Challenge yourself, don't overwhelm, because right pressure builds capacity. With the previous strategies, you regained composure and clarity. You can now perceive reality more accurately and assert toward your objectives. But clarity does not eliminate politics. Many capable professionals stumble because they ignore power dynamics. One common mistake? Oversharing. Sharing too much. Sharing too early. Sharing with the wrong person. Let's be clear. Vulnerability is a disadvantage. And in the wrong context, it becomes a liability. Before you disclose, ask, does this serve my objective? What exactly should I reveal? And how should I frame it? How could this be used for me or against me? The point is, set your disclosure goal first, because vulnerability is a weakness and exposure can be costly. Manage the risk. Position for leverage. The strategies we just covered form a governing architecture, one that stabilizes you internally, sharpens you operationally, and positions you strategically. First, internal discipline. You self-regulate. You replace rigid and extreme attitudes with rational ones. You reinterpret, you reframe, you move from disturbance to clarity. Second, operational discipline. You don't stay in theory, and you don't stay in your head. You simulate execution. You execute. You assert. You challenge yourself deliberately. You build capacity through calibrated exposure. Third, positional discipline. You become power aware. You control disclosure. You don't overshare. You position intentionally. You understand that context shapes outcomes. This is the sequence. Stabilize, perform, strategize. Control self, deliver competence, shape environment. That is the shift from reacting emotionally to operating structurally. That is what moves you from overlooked to influential. The Managing Vulnerability series provides the architecture, Internal discipline stabilizes you. Operational discipline expands your capacity to perform. Positional discipline sharpens how you move within power structures. This is not theory, it's a systematized approach. The power sequence course built around the accept, assert, influence progression, a structured path from regulation via assertion to influence, because acceptance stabilizes you, assertion operationalizes you, influence positions you for outcome. Architecture builds discipline. Discipline brings leverage. So you move from overlooked to influential. The power sequence course is built for principled professionals, competent but overlooked, capable but underleveraged. This is a 6-week structured progression, live online sessions, practical materials, one-to-one support, not theory, implementation. The goal is simple: develop discipline, internal discipline, so you regulate yourself, operational discipline, so you execute under pressure, positional discipline, so you move strategically within power structures. This is not about tricks or hacks. It's about building the capacity to operate deliberately and gain mental balance, competence, and influence. If this resonates, reach out. The power sequence is not for everyone. It's for professionals who are competent but tired of being underpositioned. If you're ready to operate differently, internally, operationally, strategically, send a message. We'll see if it's the right fit. And remember, manage your vulnerability before it bosses you around. That's how you move from overlooked to influential. Your vulnerability bosses you around, distorts your perceptions, miscalibrates your actions, bleeds you power. But manage it strategically and you gain clarity, agency, and positioning. That's when you stop reacting. That's when you start strategizing. And that's when you move from being overlooked to being influential. So either you manage your vulnerability or it manages you. Which will it be?